Welcome to Her Life Unscripted podcast, inspiring burnt out, stressed out, and stretched thin women to embrace the unscriptedness of life. Hosted by Anna Osborne.
Hello there, and welcome to Her Life Unscripted episode 18. I'm excited to be here today. Today marks the official end of the 8-week launch for Her Life Unscripted. And so we were doing twice a week episodes for the past 8 weeks. And next week we'll start the regular flow of this podcast, which will become a weekly show released on Tuesdays. So it has been an amazing ride these last 8 weeks. And as much as it has been, a lot of work behind the scenes, it's also been just truly amazing to be able to connect with all of you and just see this project, this just spark grow throughout not only your guys' words of encouragement, but also kind of your feedback and what you're getting from the show. So it is exciting times around here. It's also exciting times because I'm at my office recording today and they are ripping out my front porch and putting a new one on. So my office is in the very back of the building that of the office space that I rent. And so we will see how much hammering and sawing ends up happening. But that's kind of what happens. You get an email that says construction's been delayed for a week. So you show up to record and lo and behold, they decided that they could make it in today to start the construction, even though it was supposed to be delayed. So here we are today. And, I've had a crazy busy week, but I also had a lot of kind of restorative time over this past weekend. I think I've shared with you guys that we've been working on reflooring the entire house over the summer. And so I took the kids to my folks for the weekend to be able to kind of give my husband a couple days at the house with no kids running around so that he could wrap up the last few rooms that needed to be floored. And it was just really nice to be able to spend some time with the kids and my folks. And just, I don't know the last time the kids and I have gone on a trip together. Usually I'll go a day or so early and then my husband will meet me, when he's kind of wrapped up his work week. But to be able to be there the whole time with just the kids, it was definitely a lot of work. But I'm very grateful that my folks were, kind of just so sweet to be cooking meals for us and just taking care of us a little bit. So it felt nice to be nurtured. And actually, funny story, we visited my folks, right? And so, of course, there's extra little treats and surprises because we're at Grammy and Opa's house. And my mom bought a box of Lucky Charms, which my children have never had before. And so, of course, they're instantly, like any child, goes right to the marshmallows. And so the box of cereal came home with us. And so on Monday morning, we experienced what I am now referring to as LuckyGate. I poured both the kids a bowl of cereal, kind of put their milk out, vitamins, and went to go take a quick shower. And my son was awake. My daughter wasn't awake yet. I'm halfway through my shower and here comes my daughter, bedhead, just totally, kind of wild-eyed. And she can barely get out that she woke up to all of her marshmallows being gone. And so what had happened is that my son, hopped up on to the table and ate his bowl of cereal and then looked next to him and saw another bowl of cereal and realized that sister was not awake yet. And so he did what any 4-year-old would do. And he started eating just the marshmallows out of her bowl. And so she woke up to him doing that and just one marshmallow remaining. And so, I handled it the best that I could, which was I went to the pantry and got 2 giant marshmallows left over from our latest, camping trip with s'mores, and I plunked 2 of those babies right in her bowl. And the look on his eyes of her getting 2 giant marshmallows was, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but it was quite funny that he instantly knew that those marshmallows were something that he was willing to basically steal from my daughter because they were just that good. So yes, we experienced LuckyGate, we got through it, and I don't think my son will do that again because the look in his eye when his sister got 2 giant marshmallows because of the ones he stole was pretty unreal. So, it's those parenting decisions you make on the fly, but it felt like, natural consequence, right? So anyways, that's kind of what's been going on with me lately. And today I'm really excited to be talking about kind of this culture of gratitude or creating an environment of gratitude around you. And really a lot of reasons are kind of inspiring today's show. I think one is that when we talk about gratitude, it's really something that I think a lot of times people minimize how important it is and almost kind of trivialize. And so I really want to have a discussion about what exactly gratitude is, but it's also because as we're coming to the end of these 8 weeks together, I have so much gratitude in my heart for what all of you are creating, this community of just encouragement that's really, really quite amazing. So being able to really highlight that, I think, is something that's important. And I actually am going to I've gotten some feedback from the SpeakPipe app, and actually one that really stands out to me that I'll share at the end of the show. So thinking about this kind of culture of gratitude, I just want to start by saying that as a licensed psychotherapist, gratitude is something that I try and incorporate into a lot of the work that I do, if not all the work that I do. And I think over the years of being so mindful about having that environment around me, it's also made me realize that it's something that maybe comes a little bit more naturally now than it did before. And I was really struck by this yesterday when I was working with a client, and we were looking at some, kind of reframing some things and looking at things through different lenses. And the way that we were discussing it, she kind of paused and said, something to the effect of, there's just a way that it just flows naturally. And I want to get to that place in terms of looking for the opportunity or the moment for gratitude in certain interactions. And it made me really pause, because I think sometimes I get ahead of myself. I sit in that therapist chair and I love the work that I do, but I think sometimes I get ahead of myself, that the things that we're talking about are conversations that I'm having on, a very regular basis with a lot of people, but that they're not necessarily having those same conversations on a regular basis with those people around them. And so I think being able to slow down and really kind of create a foundational understanding of what gratitude is and how it benefits us is of importance to all of us. And what I'm really excited about our topic today is that it's going to be a great reminder for me too of how to incorporate some new gratitude practices. And actually even just doing some research for the show, I was blown away by these ideas of things that I never had thought of or tried. And I really want to be able to incorporate that place into. And another reason why gratitude is so important to me is that I have littles, I have twin 4-year-olds, and trying to teach them what being grateful means and how to give thanks is something that I'm constantly, working with them on, and they get it. They're working with their pleases and thank yous and, those sorts of things. But it was really funny when we were with my folks this weekend. My folks live on the coast. And so, we went to the aquarium. My mom and the kids and I went to the aquarium, and it was fun. The kids are old enough to really, really just take it all in and be super fascinated by all of it. And afterwards, when we were walking back to the car, both of them with a lot of enthusiasm said, "That was so much fun." And, it lit my mom up. And then we went somewhere else. We went to a park the next day. And afterwards they said, "That was so much fun." And it was so interesting to me because my mom really keyed in on it. And she told them both how much she appreciated hearing how much fun they had. And I realized in that moment that there's so many different ways that we can say thank you besides just saying thank you. And I think the novel way that my kids were saying it, which was, "That was so much fun," actually perked our ears up more, because we almost are conditioned to hearing thank you that we forget or aren't able to really hear it when it comes. So it was really cool to see and open my eyes to the different ways that we can show gratitude to people besides just telling them thank you. So that's really, where I'm interested in today. One of the teaching tools that I use a lot with the kids, as we're kind of just learning about what the heck this gratitude thing is the Berenstain Bear books. I'm sure there are so many about you out there that remember those books. And honestly, I grew up reading those books. They were, a staple in my household, and my kids are absolutely obsessed with them. And it is so fun to be able to read these kind of life lessons, but in a way that's really, kind of fun, but also one that is really teaching them and helping them to think a little bit about this concept of, using their manners unprompted and different things like that. So that's really kind of the place that this inspiration for the show comes today. I really want to dive in right now thinking about the opposite of gratitude, which is kind of ungratefulness or negativity. And I've got a great episode coming up in a few weeks with Catherine Kelly. And what really stood out about that interview, and there's lots of components to it, but one part is she shared the statistic that we have approximately 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, which Lordy, for me, is absolutely overwhelming, even though I really believe it to be true, and that 2/3 of those thoughts are negative. And a lot of them are even happening kind of at a subconscious level. We don't even realize these ways that we're, having these negative thoughts and how really just consistent and pervasive they are. And so it got me thinking about that if there is 2/3 of our daily thoughts, an overwhelming, 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day are negative, that why wouldn't being intentional about bringing in gratitude and thanks into our life have a profound effect, right? Like I think about kind of math here, that if something's happening at a subconscious level and we're not aware of it, And we counter it by not trying to reduce the negative thoughts, but increasing the intentionality around positive thinking and positive, gratitude in our life, then that's going to have an exponentially profound impact. And so that really, kind of those numbers made me really realize that we minimize the importance of gratitude, not because it's not important, but because I don't think we realize how important it is, right? That if 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, 2/3 of them are negative, oh my gosh, like we really, really need to be much more aware of why gratitude is so important. And so that really, stands out for me when we talk about it. But if we're talking about negative thoughts, the ways that they affect our immune system, our sleep, our anxiety levels, our eating habits, our socializing habits, they just have such a significant effect. And so I am a believer in seeking out ways to incorporate kind of the good. And so being able to really look at how profound our negative thoughts are on us, then it really creates this inspiration to move towards a place of gratitude and a gratitude practice. And the other part is I think that because we hear thank you, hopefully often enough in our lives, we minimize how important it is. Kind of like the example I just shared with my kids about they're essentially saying thank you by expressing how much fun they had on these different things that we did, that was so novel to our ears that it really stood out as this amazing way for them to share gratitude. And I think that oftentimes we minimize or disregard how important it is to give thanks because we're just kind of conditioned to do it and we're not doing it with intentionality. And so when we bring things to the forefront of our awareness, they have such a more significant effect and a significant impact because we're now aware that we're doing them rather than just going through the motions. What I'd like to do today is not only being able to look at how important it is to have this culture of gratitude, but also how do we create novel ways to show thanks in our lives? And so one thing, as I was kind of doing some of the research for the show, I found this article, and I'll link in the show notes because it's pretty interesting, but it talks about what grateful people have in common. And so I was really kind of blown away, like what do they have in common? Because what they find with research is that there are actually 4 characteristics that grateful people have, and ones that really kind of utilize gratitude practices, keep gratitude journals, those sorts of things. And what they found is from this article, and like I said, I'll link it in the show notes, is people who experience the most gratitude and therefore the most positive effects from it tend to feel a sense of abundance in their lives, appreciate the contributions of others to their well-being, recognize and enjoy life's small pleasures, and acknowledge the importance of experiencing and expressing gratitude. And that just blew me away, right? Like just blew me away because if we break down those things, and we've talked about, kind of abundance in different aspects of this podcast so far, but if we feel a sense within ourselves that there is enough to go around and that we are enough in this moment, that innately there's going to be more gratitude because we have more around us to look at and find gratitude with. And I think that can be very subjective in some ways, right? That sometimes people can look around their lives and say, I have nothing to be grateful for. And believe me, I not only get it, but I feel when people say that. And I think that the shift that people who, have more of a culture of gratitude around them is not that they have more lucky breaks or more good things happening to them, but that they have this innate sense within them that there has to be things around them that are grateful. And so they're actively seeking them out. And so it creates that sense of abundance in their life. The other thing I think that really stands out in terms of these common characteristics of people, kind of grateful people, if we'll call them, is that they really appreciate other people's contributions. And I think that the more that we are engaging in relationships with other people, the more that we're letting our guard down and letting people in, that we actually see other people as an addition to our life rather than a threat. And that really is being able to, when people want to offer help and we accept it, like that's a hard thing to do. I'm not that great at accepting help. I think that stood out for me this weekend. I've got the 2 kids to manage. My parents are being so gracious and cooking meals and things like that. And I'm trying to get tubs going. And here I am trying to get tubs going. And I'm like, Mom, I've got the dishes. You cook dinner. Don't worry. And she's like, Anna, you're taking care of the kids right now. I can clean up the dishes. It's not a problem. And so in that moment, I was having a hard time receiving that help. And so being able to really appreciate the contributions of others to their well-being is a huge way that we are able to have a characteristic or a trend towards gratitude. I think the other thing that I love about this kind of 4 things is that it really does, if we're recognizing and enjoying life's small pleasures, we're actively seeking out the things that we can be grateful for. And I know that a lot of time in my work with, especially with couples, is they'll talk about these big markers of times that they're going to spend together. Like, well, we've got a date coming up in 2 months, or we've got a trip planned next year, and that's when we'll reconnect. And that when we only have the big things as markers of connection in our life, that also kind of plays into our gratitude practice, right? That recognizing and enjoying life's small pleasures means that in our relationships, in our daily life, in our daily routines, we're looking for small ways to create connection, create abundance, create gratitude, and that it's not the big things that make the most difference. It's the small things. And so whether or not, somebody, let you into the lane when you were struggling in traffic in the morning, or your favorite song came on the radio. Like, those are super, super small things, but they're also the small things that add up to a really, really intentional great gratitude practice. And so I think being cognizant of being able to really recognize and enjoy those small moments rather than just looking for the big moments is really, really important. And then the last thing within this kind of list of 4 that I just ran through is being able to acknowledge the importance of experiencing and expressing gratitude. And what I love about that characteristic is that it's this two-way street, right? It's being able to accept and receive. And I think that that's something that oftentimes we can struggle with, that we can be really good at giving appreciation and giving gratitude to others, but we're not so great when somebody thanks us. Like, we might have this tendency to go, oh, it was no big deal, or don't worry about it, it was on my, drive-in anyway, rather than really hearing the thanks that somebody is offering to us and take it in and say, you're welcome. So I think that being able to acknowledge the importance of experiencing and expressing gratitude is huge, because we need to, that the loop isn't closed if we're just give and not receive. And so being able to have that full loop within the practice is really, really important. So I love those characteristics, and I am excited for you guys to kind of be able to pick one and see how you can really incorporate that in. I was thinking about different gratitude practices, and this list stood out to me. Like, what if we just focus our energy on recognizing and enjoying life's small pleasures? Like, that would be profound, right? In being able to just focus on really enhancing that area of your life, or being able to really move towards not only expressing gratitude, but also being able to experience it and receive it. So I'll include these in the show notes, but I really want to challenge you guys today to be able to choose one of that list of 4, those kind of common characteristics that grateful people have. And which one are you going to focus on? Like, which one are you going to really pour your energy into? Because I think that would really have a profound effect. And it's something very incrementally that we can focus on that would have really, really kind of amazing change. One other thing that stood out to me when I was doing the research for the show is the contrast between teaching gratitude and living with gratitude. I think that oftentimes, especially as a parent, I can be very focused on, are my kids saying their pleases and thank yous? And are they, showing respect to other people, and really kind of mindful of teaching them gratitude, but that as beneficial and as important that is, it is also so equally important for me to be living with gratitude, that if I'm not telling them thank you on a daily basis, if I'm not showing my appreciation for the small things that they're doing that help kind of the family unit progress forward, then I'm not living with gratitude, right? I'm just teaching it. And so I really love this idea of contrasting, are we teaching gratitude or are we living with gratitude? And for me personally, doing research with the show, it has inspired me to be able to be more cognizant and intentional around really living with more gratitude, not only, working to demonstrate that to my kids through my teaching, and parenting of them. Wouldn't that be cool if we talked about parenting as teaching? I just thought about that. Sorry, that's going to be a whole different segue. But there's so much about parenting that is teaching. And I know I have so much respect for teachers. I have some of my best friends in the world are teachers. And I just think that they're just amazing, patient people. And there's so much patience that we are hopefully grateful for our teachers to have with our children, but there's also much about parenting that's teaching, and that, it's important for us to also be patient with ourselves as we're moving through the teaching aspects of parenting. So anyway, sorry, major segue, come on back to the topic, but, really being able to, that through the interactions and the relationships I have with my life with, not only my husband and my family and my kids, but also the clients that I work with, the gratitude I have to them for being so courageous to step into therapy and make big changes in their life. And so just really living more with gratitude and expressing it in a way so that I can kind of experience it more around me. So before we end today, one thing that I really want to be able to leave you guys with is not only the challenge of the 4 things, the common characteristics and choosing one to focus on, but also how do we start this gratitude practice? And 2 things that really stood out to me that I haven't necessarily heard of, or we don't hear a lot of, is these 2 things that we're going to dive into. I think that we hear about gratitude journals a lot, and gratitude journals are amazing. Highly recommend them. Do some research on them. Google it, how to start a gratitude journal, and you will be amazed at the profound difference, not only that it takes in your life, but also so much scientific research evidence behind why they work. But these 2 other ones are ones that kind of stood out to me as something a little bit novel. And one of them is writing thank you notes. Now, I grew up in a family where you had to write thank you notes. That was kind of, before you could play with a new present, you had to write a thank you note. Well, it wasn't that strict, but definitely it was part of what we did. And, it's still something that I try and incorporate in on a regular basis. But I thought of this idea of not just writing thank you notes for a present or, the latest holiday, but what if we just wrote thank you notes to people in our lives because we just appreciate what they bring to our lives? I can't even imagine what that would feel like to share something like that with another person and to receive a letter like that. Well, I guess quite honestly, I can imagine because that's how I feel every time I get your guys' feedback. Like it gives me inspiration and motivation to keep moving forward in this podcasting journey. So I just really, really encourage you guys to, get some fun stationery or even just a good old lined piece of paper and writing a quick note to somebody to tell them thank you, whether it's your partner, whether it's your family, whether it's a coworker, what's something that you're really, really appreciative about them. And can you jot it down and give it to them so that they know that they're making a difference in this world. And that just to me seems like an amazing idea that we shouldn't just reserve thank you notes for holidays or birthdays. We should do them on a much grander scale in a very simple way, but a grander scale in terms of sometimes when it's not customary to receive a thank you note. We haven't given a gift, but man, we're important in this person's life. And so wouldn't it be amazing to thank them for what they're doing for us? The other one, the practice that I thought would be a kind of a cool thing to incorporate too, is this idea of the ungrateful thought. When we first started talking today, we were talking about the power of our negative thinking and how important it is to really kind of shift the tides there. But we know that we have ungrateful thoughts, right? Like we know that we have thoughts around frustration and negativity. So I think that, being able to acknowledge one ungrateful thought per day and really work on transforming into a grateful one so that practice actually becomes almost second nature. So for example, if we had an interaction with somebody that was negative and we're ungrateful about it, is can we look in there for the opportunity to find gratitude? And so, kind of talking with folks, one thing that I challenge them to do is that when there is something that is, feels negative, is to ask themselves the question, what is the opportunity in amongst this? Where is the opportunity here? Where is the opportunity to find gratitude? And so, for example, if, our partner's coming to us and, maybe they're venting about something and it feels like, oh my gosh, they're venting again, that actually the grateful thought, the opportunity there is realizing that yes, they're coming to vent to us, but that means that they trust us enough to vent to us. It doesn't mean that we like it and we're so excited that our partner's, venting to us or dumping on us. But what if we stop for a moment and realize that they're coming to us because they trust us and they wouldn't be venting to us or seeking us out for conversation if they didn't feel like we were there to support them. And so I really want to challenge you guys also to be able to, kind of work towards how can you acknowledge one ungrateful thought a day and really work to transform it into a grateful one by asking yourself, what is the opportunity here to find gratitude? And it's not making, rainbows and sunshine out of really bad situations, but it is looking for ways to create opportunities for gratitude in things that might seem otherwise not so possible. So that's really kind of, the bulk of the show today. I do have a SpeakPipe message that I want to share with you guys. So I'll pause here for a second to share it with you, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap up.
Hi, Anna. This is your mom. I'm just calling to say I'm very proud of you and listened to all your podcasts, and they were wonderful. And you're right, it is a vulnerable thing you're doing, so I know that's not an easy thing for any of us. Anyway, I love you lots, and I'm looking forward to hearing what else you have to say. Goodbye.
So it's my mom, obviously, and that message she sent the first week the show launched. And so here it is 8 weeks later, and I'm finally incorporating into the show. But I'm there's a lot of emotion that comes up just hearing those words about her being proud of me and the vulnerability that it takes to be able to, just kind of share of myself and my soul and connect with you guys. So I'm so grateful that she shared that message. And I just want to, really just pay that message forward and just let you guys know that I'm proud of you too. You're doing amazing, amazing things in your lives, and you're sharing that with other people, and you're creating these amazing ripple effects around you, right? We talked about that last week, and I'm proud to know you, and I'm proud to be connecting with you, and I can't wait to get to know you more through this journey. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for this amazing, past 8 weeks. And I can't wait for you guys to continue diving into the show on a weekly basis. I encourage you to, share these episodes with your friends and your family, and be sure and subscribe so that you're able to get the episodes coming to you, on a regular basis rather than having to hunt around for them. And the other thing I really encourage you to do is head over to the website, herlifeunscripted.com. And, there's a couple different resources on there and some different things that I've got going on. So it'd be amazing for you guys to check that out. But more than anything, send me your feedback. If there's topics or people you want me to interview, send that information over. Do a virtual introduction, Anna@herlifeunscripted.com. I would love to be able to interview some of you and your amazing stories and just have you, all of us grow this community together. So thank you so much. It's been truly an honor, and I'm so excited to continue on this journey with you. Talk to you next week. Bye.
Want to learn about the latest retreats, workshops, and speaking events hosted by Anna? Head over to herlifeunscripted.com to get in on all the juicy details. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast so we can continue to grow our amazing audience. Lastly, be sure and send in your voice feedback via the SpeakPipe app or to Anna@herlifeunscripted.com. We can't wait to hear from you.